Taha helped with one of the slides, and I did the other 5. So, yeah. So, this is the order. Why it started, what happened during the war, and how and why it ended. Which countries were in it? Okay, remember, this is the order, and the time frames will be in the description. Or probably in the comments, just check. Rules. Make a school appropriate. And 4 or less wars per person. Table of contents. Conquest of Istanbul. The Revolutionary War. World War I. World War II. Cold War. Conquest of Istanbul. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II wanted to conquer Constantinople. Lots of people tried to conquer Constantinople, including his father. His father once made him the Sultan when he was about 13 years old. But since he wanted to conquer Constantinople, one of his advisors complained to Mehmed's dad because lots of people tried to conquer Constantinople and failed. The city of Constantinople, or modern-day Istanbul, was founded by Roman Empire Constantine I in 324 CE and acted as the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire or Byzantine Empire. As it has later became known for well over 1,000 years. Although the city suffered many attacks, prolonged sieges, internal rebellion, and even period of occupation in 13th century CE by Fourth Crusaders. Its legendary defenses were the most formidable in both the ancient and medieval worlds. It could not resist the mighty cannons of Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II and Constantinople, jewel and bastion of Christendom was conquered, smacked, and looted on Tuesday, 29th of May, 53 CE. Fall of Constantinople. The conquest of Constantinople by Sultan Mehmed II of Ottoman Empire. The dwindling Byzantine Empire came to an end when Ottomans breached Constantinople ancient land wall after besieging the city for 55 days. The countries that fought in the war is the Ottoman Empire. Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, Egypt, Hungary, Macedonia, Romania, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and some of Arabia. And the Byzantine Empire, some of Greece, and the eastern part of Turkey. The Revolutionary War. You like the music? The American Revolution was principally caused by the colonial opposition to the British attempts to impose greater control over the colonies and to make them repay the Crown for defense of them during the French and Indian War. The Revolutionary War, 1775 to 83, also known as the American Revolution, arose from growing tension between the residents of Great Britain's 13 North American colonies and colonial government, which represented the British Crown. Skirmishes between the British troops and colonial militiamen in Lexington and Concord in April 1775 kicked off the armored conflict, and by the following summer the rebels were waging a full-scale war for independence. France entered the American Revolution on the side of the colonists in 1778, turning what essentially has been a civil war into an international conflict. After French assistance helped the Continental Army force, the British surrendered at Yorktown, Virginia in 1781, the Americans had effectively won their independence, though fighting would not formally end until 1783. After the British defeat at Yorktown, the land battles in America largely died out because the fighting continued at sea, chiefly between the British and American European allies, which came to include Spain and the Netherlands. The military verdict in North America was reflected with preliminary Anglo-American Peace Treaty of 1782, which was included in the Treaty of Paris of 1783. By its turn, British recognized the independence of the United States with generous boundaries including Mississippi River on the west. British retained Canada and ceded east at West Florida to Spain. Countries that were in the Revolutionary War: America, Britain, and France. World War I. And as you can see, I put the date on the bottom. World War I, also known as the Great War, began in 1914 after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. His murder capitulated a war across Europe that lasted until 1918. During the conflict, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire, the Central Powers, fought against Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Japan, and the United States, the Allied powers. Thanks to the new military technologies and the horror of trench warfare, World War I saw an unprecedented level of carnage and destruction. By the time the war was over, the Allied power claimed victory. More than 16 million people died. Soldiers and civilians alike were dead. World War I, also known as the Great War, began in 1914 after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria. By the time the war was over, the Allies claimed victory more than basically at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, Allied leaders would start deciding post-war world that would safeguard itself again for future conflicts of a devastating scale. Some hopeful participants had even begun calling World War I the world's end all war. But the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919. It would not achieve that lofty goal. Saddled with war guilt, heavy reparations, and denied entry to the League of Nations, Germany felt tricked into signing the treaty, having believed any peace would be a peace without victory, as put forward by President Wilson in his famous 14-point speech of January 1918. Over 30 nations declared between 1914 and 1918, the majority joined on the side of the Allies, including Serbia, Russia, France, Britain, Italy, and the United States, were opposed by Germany, Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire, who together formed the Central Powers. World War II. This is the military year the first war was staged on for another international conflict. World War II, which broke out 2 decades later, will prove the most devastating environment and not economically and politically unstable Germany. Adolf Hitler, leader of the Nazi Party, rearmed the nation and signed strategic treaties with Italy and Japan, further ambitions of world domination. Hitler invaded Poland in September 1939. Drove Britain and France to declare war on Germany, marking the beginning of World War II. Over the next 6 years, the conflict will take more lives and destroy land property around the globe than any previous war. Among the estimated 45 to 60 million people were killed, 6 million Jews murdered in Nazi concentration camps as part of Hitler's diabolical final solution, now known as Holocaust. World War II, also called Second World War, conflict that involved virtually every part of the world during the years of of 1939 to 45. The principal belts were the Axis power: Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allies: France, Great Britain, and the United States, the Soviet Union, and to a lesser extent China. The war was in many respects continuation after an easy 20-year hiatus of the disputes left unsettled by World War I. The 40 million to 50 million deaths occurred in World War II, making it the bloodiest conflict as well as the largest war in history. The World War II ended with the unconditional surrender of Germany in May 1945. Both May 8th and May 9th are celebrated as Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day. This double celebration occurred because Germany surrendered to Western Allies, including Britain and the U.S. on May 8th, and separate surrender took place on May 9th in Russia. In the East, the war ended when Japan surrendered unconditionally in August 14th, 1945, signing the surrender on September 2nd. The Japanese surrender occurred after U.S. states, of course, the U.S. dropped atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 6th and 9th. Respectively, the date of the Japanese surrender is known as Victory over Japan Day, or VG Day. World War II is also called the Second World Conflict that involved virtually every part of the world during the years. The principal battlegroups were the Axis powers: Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allies: France, Great Britain, and the United States, and the Soviet Union, and to a lesser extent China. Cold War. The Cold War began after the surrender of Nazi Germany in 1945, when the uneasy alliance between the United States and Great Britain on the one hand, and the Soviet Union upon the other, started to fall apart. The Americans and the British worried that the Soviet domination in Eastern Europe might be permanent. Cold War was an ongoing political rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies that developed after World War II. This hostility between the two superpowers was first given its name by George Orwell in an article published in 1945. World War III. During 1989 and 1990, the Berlin Wall came down, borders opened, and free election out of the communist regime everywhere in Eastern Europe. In late 1991, the Soviet Union itself dissolved into the component republics with stunning speed. The Iron Curtain was lifted and the Cold War came to an end. The Cold War was an intense relationship between the United States and its allies and the Soviet Union, the USSR and its allies, also known as Russia, Kazakhstan, yada yada yada. Between the end of the World War II and the fall of the Soviet Union. So yeah, that's the end.